deliciously easy to savor all that the season has to offer, with mouth-watering recipes delivered right to our door. Right now, we can treat ourselves to gourmet meals and pick up cooking skills along the way with their new limited-time Harvest Dinner Series. And HelloFresh Market makes hosting our next tailgater party easier than ever with fall flavors, a rotating selection of fall-inspired brunch kits, dessert boards, and more. Louise and I just made the one-pan Rajas quesadilla and salsa fresca, Southwest cream and guacamole. It was great. Easy to make. The flavors were amazing. With over 35 weekly recipes to choose from, HelloFresh helps spice up our cooking routine with fewer trips to the store, and it even saves us money, too. Sign up today for 65% off plus free shipping. Code TOM65 at HelloFresh.com/THOM65. That's code TOM65 at HelloFresh.com.
Hey, Chicago, I'm Rick Smith, host of The Rick Smith Show, and I want to hear from you. Weeknight from 8 to 10 p.m. right here on WCPT AM 820. Call in and be heard as we focus on the issues most important to working America. The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk. Weeknights 8 to 10 p.m. right here on WCPT AM 820, home of Chicago's progressive talk.
When I was younger, I may have did some stupid things, even committed some crimes, but I'm not a criminal.
I work for youth advocate programs, yeah. I was Tamani's advocate, helping him stay out of jail, stay in the neighborhood, and get a job.
As a little kid, I experienced trauma and I acted out. Made some mistakes, but I'm not a mistake.
As Jalen's YAP advocate, I'm always here for her.
YAP is a community-based alternative to youth incarceration and neighborhood violence. Youth advocate programs. Learn how at yapinc.org.
Driving it home with Patty Vasquez. Weeknights from 5 to 6 p.m. on WCPT 820.
This is AP News. I'm Rita Foley. It's the Democrats' best chance to flip a Senate seat this year. And last night, Pennsylvania Democrat John Fetterman faced off in a debate against Republican Dr. Mehmet Oz. The AP's Donna Warder.
Democrat John Fetterman, Pennsylvania's current lieutenant governor, first addressed what he called the elephant in the room, the stroke he suffered just 5 months ago.
If my doctor believes that I'm fit to serve, and that's what I believe.
Okay, so the log issue is not really being resolved. I'm trying to get in contact with someone who might be able to help me, but so I might not be able to add 2 minutes to the top of the hour. But I'm gonna get Vicki Johnson ready to go, so we can
Pastor Johnson.
Right. So we can be ready to go.
Thank you.
Right away.
Hard drugs in America, including narcotics.
Fetterman and Oz are vying to fill the seat of retiring GOP Senator Pat Toomey. I'm Donna Warder.
That debate heard on News Nation. Lots of complaints on Russian news outlets and social media as President Putin's mobilization of reservists for the war in Ukraine gets a closer look. The AP's Charles de Ledesma is overseas.
Since Russian President Vladimir Putin announced his army mobilization for the war in Ukraine, independent media outlets, human rights activists and draftees themselves have painted a bleak picture. They describe a haphazard, chaotic and ethnically biased effort to round up as many men as possible and push them quickly to the front, regardless of skill or training.
Beginning today, the city of Shanghai, China is giving out an inhalable COVID-19 vaccine. This appears to be a world first. There are hopes that the needle-free vaccines may persuade people who don't like getting a shot to get vaccinated. Gas is $3.76 a gallon this morning. This is AP News. Was it illegal?
Los Angeles police are investigating whether the recording that captured city council members' racist remarks was made illegally. Los Angeles police detectives are investigating how a recording of city council members meeting in private last year was made and by whom. The tape posted on Reddit included racist remarks from those at the meeting. Police Chief Michael Moore says council members Kevin De Leon and Gil Cedillo and Labor head Ron Herrera asked for the investigation.
They approached the department on Friday, this past Friday, and requested that we conduct an investigation into the illegal recording of their private conversation.
Council President Nuri Martinez resigned after the tape was made public. The group was heard using racist language to mock colleagues, as well as one councilman's young black son, while they plan to protect Latino political strength in council districts. I'm Tim McGuire.
And I'm Rita Foley, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming
Okay, do we
worldwide
have
at
Pastor Johnson up?
WCPT820.com.
Yeah, let me put it through.
Thank you.
Progressive talk, where facts matter.
I'm already up on Facebook.
Now, your WCPT 820 Chicago traffic.
All right.
So you can check and see if we can hear her.
On the inbound
Yep, just get everything ready.
Field to Montrose.
She should be through now, so you can talk.
Okay, Pastor Johnson, how are you?
Access to the express lanes is
well. How are you
Doing great, just doing some last minute
downtown Chicago keeps going up.
work.
There's an hour and
So if you can just keep speaking so that we can make sure that we can hear you
the express lanes aren't open till diversity there,
Facebook
but
and YouTube.
Eden still has good traffic flow.
great.
16 minutes late at the junction. Canfield to Montrose.
We are so happy to be here today.
Papers delay, and it's also heavy on westbound.
Okay, you know what, Henry, I need you to
downtown
bring
the
down
airport.
the feed so that we can hear
From
her.
Manheim to Des Plaines Avenue. I'm Jim Calamonte.
The Tom Hartman radio program.
Sorry, what was that?
Henry, can you bring down the feed so we can hear her and can hear her and the radio?
Weekdays 11 to 2.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
There you go. I said that this is a good day, a great day, a good day to be alive and to be able to do that which is assigned to our hands to do, to be a blessing to ourselves and to others.
Amen to that. So, okay, can you hear her?
A mess. So he worked to balance.
Yes.
Okay, very
pay bills
good.
on time and improve
Okay.
Illinois' credit rating.
All right, very good.
He hasn't just helped put us on a stronger financial footing. He's made Illinois a national leader on so many issues we care about. Raising the minimum wage, protecting voting rights, cracking down on the sale of illegal guns. JB also signed a landmark law protecting a woman's right to choose. So, when the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, Illinois became a safe haven for women everywhere. That's why I'm proud to cast my ballot to re-elect J.B. Pritzker. And I hope you will too.
Paid for by J.B. Pritzker.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
Abortion rights to issues with the economy.
First of all, you can either people scared. I have worked hard to have real policies that are making a difference. And as you mentioned, that debt is still being collected. But I did focus on now reforming the budget.
So how much time do I have, Henry?
Real quick, just doing the math.
I'm sorry?
One moment.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer are inviting Israeli President Isaac Herzog to address Congress. The pair said in a letter Tuesday they hope Herzog can speak about the historic and joyous milestone of Israel's upcoming 75th anniversary. Herzog will be in Washington while giving the latest COVID booster shot, President Biden is urging Americans to get the jab.
Take about 2 minutes.
How much?
Like a minute and a half.
Okay, thank you.
Nearly every death can be prevented. One further check what Americans would need. Michael Kastner, NBC News Radio.
Joan Esposito live local.
Can you bring Joan up again, please?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
With the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program.
From energy to public health, extreme weather, the economy, and more, Climate Connections makes the global local. Hear it weekdays during the Tom Hartman program and during Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Right here on WCPT 820.
Where are we? Are we a minute? Are we 30 seconds?
Okay, apparently there's a lot more stuff going on. So we have about 2.5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Getting killed.
For sure.
You look at, you whistle at a white woman, or you're walking on the same side of the street of a white person. I mean, this has been Black life in America for 400 years. That's what drove race apart. He said, every time I looked at my face in the mirror, I saw all of the abuse.
The Santita Jackson Show, weekday mornings at 6 on WCPT 820.
For years, the special interests got whatever they wanted in Washington, an American price. That all changes right now because Congress just passed the Inflation Reduction Act and President Biden signed it into law. Here's what that means for you. First, Medicare can now finally negotiate lower prices for prescription drugs. Drugs like insulin will cost a fraction of what they do today. The days of drug companies price gouging seniors are over. Second, it builds on the Affordable Care Act to lower healthcare premiums for 13 million Americans. And third, this bill includes the largest investment ever to take on climate change. Clean energy production will ramp up, dependence on fossil fuels will come way down, and new jobs will be created. The entire bill is paid for by making the biggest corporations and the ultra-wealthy pay their fair share, saving Americans money today, nations tomorrow. Learn more at whitehouse.gov.
2 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
This is the WCPT Veteran Minute. During the Civil War, 11% of the Confederate Army was made up of enslaved men
Thank
forced
you.
to join. One of these men
Just let me know 1 minute, 30 seconds. Just let me know where we are.
Will do.
Okay, thank you.
Smalls learned as much as he could about navigating the ship so he and others could escape. And on May 13th of 1862, while officers were sleeping, Smalls, along with 16 others, took the planter out of the Charleston harbor, navigating through all 5 checkpoints while heading to open waters, looking for the Union blockade. Smalls raised a white flag of surrender, having Union soldiers board the ship, giving them guns, ammo, and documents about planned Confederate attack. Being a wealth of information, Smalls was given the role of the Union Navy captain.
Just over a minute.
Thank you.
President Lincoln to allow free African Americans to serve in the Union Army. This has been a WCPT Veteran Minute.
Cold floors? The problem is probably down below in the basement or crawl space. Hi, I'm Roy Spencer with Permaseal. I'm happy to say that we can now help make your basement and crawl space warmer and therefore your upstairs more comfortable with our new product, Permaseal. We spray this insulating foam to clean your floor joists, but you're not, so we also deter insects, rodents, and is mold and mildew resistant.
30 seconds.
I'm sorry?
30 seconds.
Fiberglass bats.
Okay, thank
For
you.
40 years, homeowners in Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana have trusted Permaseal to make their homes healthier and more valuable. Call a contractor you can rely on. Permaseal. 800-421-SEAL. That's 800-421-7325.
WCPT.
Okay, I need you to turn everything up. I can barely hear anything.
All right, we're about to go.
Thank you.
We can change the world.
Bring it up, please.
Change the world. We can change the world. We can
Better?
change the world.
A little louder.
Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Turn it up just a little bit more.
Will do.
Thank you. It's too far back. Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Getting a little feedback, getting an echo. We're going to work that out. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. WCPT is my home station, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Have you voted early? Are you voting? Do you know if you're still on the voter rolls? Please plan your vote and vote your plan. Go to vote.org and find out if you're still on the voter rolls. There is time to do something about it. Many states, more and more states, we are able to do same-day voter registration, but you need to know if your name is still on the rolls so that you're not surprised when you get to the polls. You also need to know where to vote. Precincts have been closed since COVID. A lot of things have been happening. You need to know where to go vote. And if you do go vote early, or if you vote on the day of the actual midterm elections, I want you to call 1-866-OUR-VOTE, 1-866-OUR-VOTE. If you have any problems outside the polls or inside the polls, we're seeing more and more armed poll watchers. They're at ballot boxes when people are dropping off their ballots. They are outside the polling places. Now, police officers are now out in Arizona. They're saying they're being instructed by the sheriff to protect the voters.
There's a lot going on. But if you encounter any problems inside the polls, outside the polls, do not leave the polls. Do not leave until you have voted and that has been resolved. And what you need to do is call 1-866-OUR-VOTE. A team of lawyers will be there waiting to receive your call, and they will give you instructions on what to do next. It's Wednesday, October 26, 2022. I want you to get out there and vote, everybody. This is such a consequential election. Every seat in the U.S. House of Representatives is up. A third of the U.S. Senate is up. Indeed, the balance of the Senate is at stake. Governorships, state representatives, secretaries of state, state senators, the people who in the state capitals who decide who goes to Washington, who decides what their districts look like. Well, that is, that's what's being decided. So don't think, though, don't give in to the myth as you hear people say, oh my goodness, my vote doesn't matter. That is not true. Every single vote does count. Call me at 773-763-9278. I want to hear what's on your mind this morning. I want to hear what's on your mind. Did you see the Fetterman-Oz debate last night? It was tough to watch. I mean, because it's always tough when you see someone who is ill, who is struggling to get through. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about how you can protect your vote. There are some steps that you need to take to make sure that you will be able to vote, because more and more that is at risk. 50,000 volunteers have been deployed by the GOP in all the states and territories to watch you vote. Keep that in mind, everybody. And then we're going to have a roundtable discussion really talking about the midterms. And we want to hear what's on your mind. What's at stake? What are the issues? What has your voting experience been? Is the messaging right from the Democrats, the Republicans, and even third parties? I want to hear from you, and I want you to call me even now, 773-763-9278. I promise you we will be taking these calls. I'm just trying to move things around because I want to hear what your thoughts are today. Everybody in Chicago, we're going to have a high of 54 degrees. There will be showers in Minneapolis, St. Paul, 51 degrees, sunny. In the NBA, the Spurs will be meeting the Timberwolves tonight, and the Pacers will be here in Chicago meeting the Bulls. In the NHL, the Chicago team won 4 over the Panthers, 2, and the Wild 3-1 over the Canadiens. As I shared, are you voting? 1 million people have voted early in Georgia. They've never seen numbers like this before. This is a dramatic increase, really over the past decade. A dramatic increase from the last midterm and the midterm before that, the 2020 election. I mean, people are voting. People are very, very involved. People are very engaged. Are you planning to vote? Do you have a plan? Vote your plan, but you got to have one first, everybody. The two candidates competing in arguably the highest profile Senate race of the year faced off in a televised debate last night. That is Democratic Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, and Republican Dr. Mehmet Oz of television fame. They're vying for votes in Philadelphia in a race that is considered the Democrats' best chance of flipping a seat in the Senate. So what do you think is going to happen, everybody? What do you think is going to happen? Many people saw Lieutenant Governor Fetterman struggling last night, but you heard Dr. Mehmet Oz give answers that gave a lot of people cause to pause. I want to know what your thoughts are. Call me at 773-763-9278. I mean, how do we deal with someone who is battling back after illness? Do we tell them to step away from their jobs? Do we fire them, or do we walk with them? I realize Americans are not really into thinking empathetically right now because Americans are struggling. And maybe he reminds us of who we could be if we have a tough day. I don't know. You call me at 773-763-9278. But aside from the elephant in the room that Lieutenant Governor Fetterman acknowledged, abortion rights took center stage, everybody. Sherrod Brown is one of the few Democrats now who's beginning to talk about the economy. He's warning that the Fed chair that the rate hikes are putting working class livelihoods at risk. Indeed, the Fed chair said, well, by hiking the interest rates, we are going to lose jobs.
Wow. What do you think about that? 773-763-9278. Opponents of gun violence on Tuesday urged Americans to vote for Democratic candidates who support common sense safety measures after law enforcement officials said that the 19-year-old gunman who killed a teacher and a 15-year-old student at a St. Louis high school was armed with an AR-15 style rifle with more than, get this everybody, 600 rounds of ammunition. The Justice Department is asking a federal judge to force two of the former President Donald Trump's White House lawyers to testify about their conversations with the former president, according to three people familiar with the investigation. The move to compel additional testimony from Pat Cipollone, who is the former White House counsel, Deputy White House counsel Patrick Philbin, just last week as part of a secret court proceeding. We will see how all of this goes. In the meantime, people in Brazil are voting on a new president, and Lula Ignacio da Silva is leading President Bolsonaro. And activists warn of blatant disinformation online just before their runoff. We will see. He is the working man's candidate, everybody. So those are some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. We have got some good news from Pastor Vicki Johnson with her Hour of Power at her church, the St. Thomas Lutheran Church here in Chicago at 80th and Jeffrey. You can catch them online for those of you who are not here in Chicago. You want to go from 11:45 to 12:45 every Sunday. It'll charge you up for the week and for the rest of your life. How you doing, Pastor Johnson?
I am doing well, Santita. What about you?
I won't complain. How about that?
That's a good song to live by.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. That's going to be my theme song from here on out.
Amen. Good morning to you, and good morning to all of your morning stars and friends. There is good news. There are radio ads that are put out by the Ad Council. They do a really good job of provoking thought. There's a particular ad where they ask people what they would like to see in their neighborhoods to make them better. One person says, without thinking, that they would like to have more ice cream trucks or water fountains. Frivolous answers. And then when someone says they would like the creation of more jobs to help stabilize the community and put people back to work, the others begin to change their response. This is because those who were asked initially had no idea of what they wanted. So today, I ask you, what do you want? What do you want for you that will make you more content? People ask you, what do you want for your birthday? What do you want for Christmas? And you're able to conjure up an answer. But what do you want for you that will make you a better person, a happier person, a more fulfilled person? What do you want for your family to promote your family legacy? What do you want for your community to make it more viable? Do you know what you want? Have you given it more thought beyond what type of color car you would want? How much thought have you given to yourself? I think you deserve some thought time for you. It is not being self-centered, no. I think it is self-care. If you don't think about you, are you guaranteed that anyone else will? So today, invest some meaningful time with yourself to know what you really want and need so that when or if asked Unlike the people from the ad council commercials, you will be able to give a well thought out answer that will not only be a benefit to you, but a blessing to those around you. You will even be able to work towards goals you didn't even know that you had. Find out what you want. You deserve to at least know. If you will do this, and I believe that you will, then to me, that's good news.
Amen to that. Thank you so much. You know, a friend of mine told me about that. She said, you know, it's not selfish to think of yourself. You've got to do that first. You know, even my father said there is place for ego in this world. You just don't ease God out, right? He said, but you need to have enough stuff inside of you to develop your gifts. I mean, to have enough pride of ownership. And, you know, that's why you don't say ouch for somebody else. You say ouch for yourself. You know, at some point you do have to be self-focused. Yes. And I thank you for that. Why did you feel compelled to say that today? I mean, do you think that we're getting too far away from what we feel?
I'm going to tell you what provoked that thought. I'm reading Viola Davis's book, Finding Me.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of hers in the book asked her, what do you want? What is it that you want in a relationship? And she lived a very rough life. I recommend the book. And he told her to get down on her knees before she went to bed at night and to pray in detail, telling God exactly what she wanted for a mate. And she named him an ex-football player, somebody that already had children because she would not be able to have them, and all kind of actor or loving the arts, all of the details. And when she was about to get up, she got back on her knees because something else came to mind. And we don't pray in detail. We don't ask in detail. We're kind of general when it comes to ourselves. But the universe will give you what it is that you are desirous of if you ask in detail. And I heard Pam Morris talking yesterday about the power of prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Pray in detail for what you want. And that's what provoked the thought.
I appreciate that because, you know, that was what Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman talked about, the science of, of our religious thought.
Okay.
Yeah, just really, I mean, that you need to be very specific. You know, you can't be all over the place because in life, we can't be all over the place, you know, and I thank you for that this morning because we really do need that. Are you seeing people vote?
Yes, I've been seeing people wearing the tag, I voted, and I'm very excited about that. We can never give up the right to vote, and we can never pretend like, it's like going to the store or something. It's so serious. I think that we need to be reminded each election of what our forefathers did in order to get us the right to vote, African Americans the right to vote, and then what was done by the forefathers of this country to have the right to vote. So it's real important, and our democracy is at stake. So let's vote. Let's get out there and vote and tell our youngins to vote. Celebrate the ones that are graduating this year and say, oh, by the way, you're 18 now, right? Come on, let me take you to the polls. You need to vote.
Amen to that. Everybody, you need to get out and vote. Please get out and vote. Don't let anyone tell you that your vote doesn't matter because it really, really does matter. And I want to address one of my, someone who's listening to us today, who said that I did not mention, I think is it Thomas Grasser? How are you this morning? You said, since you're pushing blacks to vote Democrat, don't forget if you're white, vote for the right. I'm not pushing anyone to vote in any particular direction. While I'm an independent Democrat, I want people to vote first. What is offensive to me as an American is when any American, it should be offensive to you, at least I hope it is, because that's what a true patriot is. You want everyone to have the right to vote. And then may the majority speak. But the majority should not be tyrannous. The majority should also consider the minority. I believe in these governments where you bring everybody in. The winner-take-all system is immature. It's immature, and it makes people bitter. It does not give people space to be heard. So when the Democrats win the presidency, well, you got a Democratic president. No, you have a president of the United States. When the Republican wins the presidency, you have a Republican president. No, you should have a president of the United States. I think that when presidents go into office, I think they should leave their parties behind and then just work for me. So before you make a lot of presumptions about me, you need to ask me. And I wish you'd call in. But I don't do the white-black thing. Of course, I acknowledge racism, and you should too. We have quite a sordid history with that, and it's baked in the cake. It's in the DNA of the nation. To our everlasting shame. So I'm not one of these black people who's not going to acknowledge it. I'm not Herschel Walker. I'm not going to make you comfortable that way. I come from the King tradition. I come from the Jackson tradition. I believe in confronting our ills and then dealing with it. I think that if you are diagnosed with cancer, do not give me cold medicine. Let's deal with the issues that we've got. And racism is a form of classism. The biggest issue we've got is classism. You, Mr. Grasser, if you were not a landowner 400 years ago, 200 years ago at the founding of this nation, you would not have had the right to vote. And more than likely, you would not have been a landowner because most white men were not. Think about that. Let's talk about protecting our vote, everybody. What do you need to do? What do you need to do to protect your vote? You have armed people who are standing at the ballot boxes waiting for you to drop your vote in. What is up with that? Back in just a minute on the Santita Jackson Show. I'm sorry, Pastor Vicky, just every now and then I have to respond. Are you still there?
Looks like she just left.
Oh, okay. Well, everyone, I have to respond, and I don't get into all of this. I just want you all to know we need to stop playing these games. And I'm a grown person, so if you want to talk to me, talk to me. But trolling and, you waiting to find some opening with me, if I make a mistake, I'll cop to it. But you also wanted to know why I didn't name the race of the shooter. More than likely, the shooter is white, even if this one is not. Most of the folks who shoot up these schools are white people. And white people and all people need to examine why that is. Why white boys who get disaffected and get disconnected want to kill everybody. It's a sickness. Yes, in the culture, your culture, that needs to be examined. I'm not going to back up off of that. It's a science. You believe in the science? You see the pain
back in a minute.
Who do we have?
I have Miss Wells ready to go, and we're coming back in a minute.
Do we have Attorney Jones?
Getting them as we speak.
Thank you.
I'll probably catch him right after the commercial break.
Okay. Get him as soon as you can, because this segment belongs to him. Thank you.
Do.
So let's stop playing games with each other. Stop trying to act like white people are blameless and black and brown people and everybody else are just full of blame. Just stop it. Just grow up in your politics. Just stop. Let's grow up. And let's get well together. How about that? Because everybody's a little sick. You can't be 3/5 human, black people, and then white people be 7/5 human and think that all these folks are going to be healthy. You got a subhuman and a superhuman. That's crazy. It's nuts. And it's still in the culture. Just stop.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
It's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Okay, we again, some technical difficulties, but we're going to work on that. Call me at 773-763-9278, the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. Let's talk about voting, everybody. We are 13 days away from the midterms. 13 days. Can you believe it? 13 days from the House and the Senate possibly flipping. If they flip, what is going to happen? Well, the January 6th Commission, for example, that'll be over. The chairmanships that Maxine Waters and Bernie Sanders have, that'll be over. You better vote, because there's a lot at stake. Every person in the U.S. House of Representatives is up for re-election. I mean, right now, everyone. A third of the Senate is up for re-election right now. Right now. Please get out and vote, everybody. Get out and vote. Get out and vote. So call me at 773-763-9278 on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Hey, Chaparral, what's going on? Okay, let's bring Chaparral up. Okay. Where is she?
She's on.
Okay. No, I could not before, but now I can hear you. How are you?
Okay. I'm great, Santita. In celebrations by us, we are your one-stop party connection, and we are currently taking orders for Thanksgiving. So don't hesitate to give us a call at 708-526-4546, 708-526-4546. We are handling all of your turkey and trimming needs, as well as also your desserts. And don't hesitate to give us a call if you need table and decor set up as well for your Thanksgiving dinner. We can handle that, as well as also we do birthday parties, baby showers, weddings. We do it all here. So call us at 708-526-4546. 708-526-4546. We look forward to serving you. Thank you so much, Santita.
Thank you so much, everybody. Let's talk about the midterms. Call us at 773-763-9278. Specifically, let's talk about protecting your vote. There are reports of armed persons sitting at the ballot box waiting for you to drop off your vote. There are people who are armed who are around polling places waiting for you to go in and vote. There are people who are intimidating. And yet, 1 million people have gone out to vote in Georgia, breaking all kinds of records. People are voting all over the country. We're expecting to have a tremendous outpouring in this election season. Will you be voting? Well, I tell you what, you will need a plan. You need to go to vote.org, and find out if you are still registered. You need to make sure that you have not been purged from the voter rolls. That's the first thing you need to do. Everybody needs to do it. It only takes a couple of minutes, vote.org. And then on vote.org, you need to find out where you need to go vote. A lot of polling places are closed because of COVID. One would think they would have worked that out by now, but you have a lot of people who are unwilling to be judges because we're still in the pandemic, everybody. Think about that. So, having said all of that, do you have a plan to vote? And what is going on? You have young African-American lawyers who are gearing up to fight voter suppression. They're gathering, they're volunteering. You have vote.org. You have, those are lawyers who are waiting, 1-866 Our Vote, lawyers who are waiting to find out any issue that you have. Do we have Attorney Darrell Jones up? I want to bring him on, the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. How you doing, Darrell?
Yes. Santita, doing well. Thank you.
Okay, let's bring him up just a bit so we can hear him just a little bit better. Thank you so much. We've got a lot to talk about today because voter intimidation is, as promised, it has manifested and it appears to be off the charts, and it could be violent. It could be violent. I mean, when I saw the reports that you had people with guns at the drop boxes, where you go drop off your ballot. I said, wait a minute, are they serious right now? Yeah, they are. They're very serious. Then you've got people who are around the polling sites who are armed. What's going on with that, Darrell? Start there, please.
Oh, Cynthia, you're 100% on point. And you'll recall earlier on when we were talking about people that were being trained and these tactics that were going to be deployed in brown and black polling areas where black voters were going to vote. Well, we know, what's been reported, particularly in Arizona, is that there have been folks that have been armed and in tactical gear, and they were sitting around the drop boxes trying to intimidate people from not going to drop off their vote-by-mail ballots. So that they didn't want to vote, just putting that fear and intimidation that's there and in place. We also know that there have been people that have been, as folks were coming to vote, that they were taking their cameras, their telephones, and taking pictures of their license tags and all this other stuff, and accusing them of being mules. That is, harvesting ballots and dropping off a whole bunch of ballots. None of which was true. But this is what they were doing to try to intimidate people from not voting, to stop them from voting. This is some of the tactics that have been used. And, we know, particularly in Arizona, that one of those matters where they were following people around and taking their tags and trying to intimidate, particularly this man and woman who were the one that were brave enough to report it, it's been referred to the Department of Justice for consideration for prosecution because of the violations of a Voting Rights Act that represents in trying to intimidate voters. So it's very real that this voter intimidation is out there in black and brown areas. We know from the prior election that in Georgia, that there was someone that showed up around the polling place, again, with a gun and a long coat, again, trying to intimidate people from voting, to stop them from voting. So this is what we know is happening around the country at various polling places at this point. And it has not gotten as intense as it's going to get. But, you've got to take your hat off to the voters in Georgia, because they're coming out in record numbers. They're coming out in numbers that exceed the general election of 2018, the last non-presidential election. They're now matching and exceeding the 2020 presidential election for early in-person voting, for what they're doing and the numbers that they're showing. So, they're showing out. Virginia, the same thing. Virginia is coming out in those numbers. And we got to remember that Virginia in 2020 and Virginia in 2022 were areas where we saw voter intimidation that was occurring at the polls. And we know that Virginia was one of the areas where they were training people on how to intimidate voters. And we know that part of the tactic of what's happening in Georgia and in Arizona isn't something that's isolated. This is a schematic theme that has been worked out. It's preconceived. They know what they want it to do, and they're going to those areas to do it. So we've got to be very vigilant when we're going to the polls to vote. We can't be intimidated. And we tell everyone, your best weapon is your cell phone. And you need to take pictures of anything that seems out of the ordinary or anything else. You need to report it to the election officials that are there. Call 866-OUR-VOTE to report it, and call the local police. Do everything. But do not be intimidated. Do not back down, because that's what they're trying to do, is to place fear in our voters to try to stop people from accessing their right to vote.
Well, yeah, you say that there's been training that these people who are with the guns and who are watching the polls to intimidate voters, that they have been trained in tactics to do that. And it takes me back, to, my parents' youth, our parents' youth, and my parents just really having dedicated their lives to the civil rights movement. They were Reverend Jim Lawson, among others, literally physically trained you that before you go to Woolworth's, before you go to the Woolworth counter, these people are going to get violent. Now, this is what you need to do. I wish we need to start doing that again so that we can understand how to use nonviolent resistance when these people approach us violently. What have these persons who seek to intimidate people, what have they been trained to do? What have they been told to do? What are some of the tactics that they are employing, Daryl? We're talking with Attorney Daryl Jones, the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. Indeed, they have been called into Georgia to monitor the vote. I mean, where's Jimmy Carter? He goes to Haiti and all these other places around the world. He needs to just go be in Georgia monitoring the vote. It's hard.
Yeah. I mean, you're very accurate. What happens is that they've been trained, and they're called poll disruptors, right?
Okay.
They're disruptors. What they're trained to do is to disrupt people that are waiting in line to vote. And what their training is how to escalate, how to get people excited, how to get them worked up. And then once they're worked up, and in this, fit of rage and anger, it's to engage them in such a way that you can call the police and have them removed, have them put their hands on have you put your hands on them so that they can have you removed, so that they can report you, that type of thing.
So they provoke
In
you
Georgia,
physically.
They provoke you physically. That's precisely what they do. Now, in Georgia, there's another thing that they can do, which is just horrible, but permitted by Georgia law, based on their last Senate Bill 202, a horrible piece of voter suppression legislation. So one of the things that they can do in Georgia is that every citizen there has no limit to the number of challenges they can do to people that are waiting in line to vote, to challenge their credentials, whether or not you really have the right to vote. In the state of Georgia, a person can do that for hundreds or thousands of voters. And that's a form of voter intimidation. That's precisely what it is to intimidate you from trying to exercise that right to vote. And what happens in several cases with regards to those challenges is that the voter then is forced to cast a provisional ballot until the election officials can verify the information and that the person is eligible to vote in that election. So, that's one of the things that they've put in place from that Senate Bill 202 that is down in Georgia. So there are a lot of tactics that they've already put in place legislatively, and some that they're employing just by voter intimidation through the practice of trying to escalate people and get people excited and provoking them into action.
Everybody, let me go to David from San Francisco, getting up real early with us today. Sending you much love, David, and sending everybody much love. Please join us on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, Santita Jackson and Friends on Facebook. Good morning, David. Rise and shine.
Good morning, Santita. Yeah, and your guest, I was just going to add just some simple, logical thing to make sure that people are able to vote, and make sure that your friends are getting enough to eat and staying healthy until Election Day. If maybe people should hold potlucks or different things, like study the ballot together kind of potlucks, and that'll keep people fed until Election Day. But the other thing, and being up in Chicago, you get nighttime comes early as days get longer, and so people are getting less sunlight. And that'll make them sluggish. It'll make them morose. It'll make them depressed. And you do not want people depressed for Election Day. So just a reminder, make sure that you're getting out and getting enough sunlight and staying healthy before Election Day.
Thank you for that. That's very important. And you know what? When you go to the polls, make sure you have some snacks, really, and something to drink. Do that.
Tied to that, with your guest was just talking about trying to intimidate people waiting in line. You remember down in Georgia, they wanted to make sure you couldn't hand out water to people standing in line. You couldn't hand out food or anything like that. I'm wondering if there's kind of an old military strategy where you get your enemy so scattered that if there were teams of little activists that went out handing out water bottles, you could have those right-wingers so busy filling out police reports they wouldn't be able to intimidate anybody else.
Well, that's a tactic too, David. Have you voted yet, or are you going to wait until Election Day?
I just got mine in the mail the other day. I got mine in the mail the other day. I'll be filling that out in the next day or so.
Oh, David, it's always wonderful hearing your voice, and I thank you for your support. Sending you much love out there in San Francisco.
Sure. Yeah, keep your health, though. That's I've been thinking about that with this sun getting, the days getting longer, the nights are getting longer, so you get more depressed in the darkness. And with election days, you don't want people sluggish and depressed. You want them eager and alert.
Well, that's why we got to get inflation together, because a lot of people are really hungry. There's that, too.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and that's why I was
you.
thinking the potlucks.
Yeah, no, you're
know,
right. We got to share. You remember when you used to get a bucket of chicken, not just your individual meal. Something to be said for that. Sending David from San Francisco much love. Let me get Brian in. Brian from Joliet. Brian, what's on your mind? Sending you much love, David. Brian, much love to
Good
you.
morning.
How
Good
are
morning. I just wanted to call to say that I voted early and I voted straight blue, straight Democrat, and I believe that unlike what they project on the television and so forth, I think all these issues are interconnected. Whether it be one of the big reasons that the Dems need to win, we have to think about voting rights, whether we're going to voting rights bill of 1965, gun laws. I'm pro-choice, abortion that relates to the economy, whether or not we're going to keep democracy or slide into a form of fascism, whether we can get the George Floyd policing reform bill ever passed. All these issues are going to be interconnected if the Republicans, right-wing extremists at best, if they win, nothing is going to be accomplished. And then I really fear that we might be sliding into a form of fascist country.
But you know what, Brian? I think that we've been there, and I think we have to decide to climb up out of it. No one was a greater fascist than J. Edgar Hoover. Look at who he was. Yeah, absolutely. So when we say that, when we act as if fascism is a new experience, African Americans, indigenous people have experienced fascism in our American experience. And if I experience it, everybody experiences it eventually. Black, brown, red people have experienced it first. Now white people are feeling it. So we have to be very, very careful, Brian. We need to understand that this is part of the American experience. And
I
have to tell you, it's problematic. I want you to engage me. Because see, it's problematic for me to hear them talk about President Trump being fascist. I will say, my parents were Dr. King staff members. And when I think of what they experienced in terms of harassment, the last year of Dr. King's life, when he knew that he was going to be assassinated. And do you know what happened, Brian? He came out against the Vietnam War a little after 6 p.m., just about a minute after 6 p.m., on April 4th, 1967. Do you know he was assassinated at 6:01, April 4th, 1968? Do you know that the FBI office in Atlanta erupted in cheers when it was confirmed that this man had been murdered, had his neck blown off?
Malcolm knew he wasn't going to last long either.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, just stay right there on that. You know, so when we talk about fascism, I'm like, wait a minute, honey, we've been living in that. Now the question is, are we going to continue in that direction? Are we going to continue to live here?
If the Republicans win, I think it's all over.
Well, the Democrats did it 50, 60 years ago. So my whole thing is it's in the system. So we are going to have to make a decision, Democrats, Republicans, independents, libertarians, because Americans really have a libertarian streak, if you want to be honest about it, because we want the government to have our back. We don't want it to be on our backs. You know what I mean? So we have to understand that about us too. We're a mix of a whole lot of philosophies and respect that.
Well, but if people have to be fearful about going out to vote,
is that ridiculous?
That's just a really scary situation.
It's a horrible situation, and I'm gonna tell you, it is a situation. It's been a situation with us ever since the beginning. I mean, that is what drove Rosa Parks. I'm just trying to open up. I'm just trying to open up the door for us to understand. I don't want us to forget what Rosa Parks and all these Black folks experienced.
Well,
we're trying to vote. So
I agree with you 100%.
And I'm saying, let's hook up this choo-choo train so we can have all of the so we can have all the cars on this choo-choo train. That's all I'm saying, Brian. You know.
Well, thank you so much for taking my call, Santita, and have a wonderful day.
And thank you for my 2 T's, my handsome gent. I can feel it right on through there. But Attorney Daryl Jones. I mean, I hear Brian, and I hear the current conversation, because we have decided that we're going to turn not only President Trump but everyone who likes him into a fascist, which I think is dangerous and untrue. But I think that fascism and all of these awful isms are very much a part of the American experience. And not to acknowledge it does not acknowledge our true history. and that for me is problematic. Daryl.
Yeah, no, I'm right. Yeah, I'm right with you on that, Santita. I think that, the whole thing of knowing the history first, right? You got to know the history before you can acknowledge it. And a large part of it, I agree with you, is that, when you start studying that history and you start seeing, where we've come from, and certainly the move toward fascism, the move towards suppression and control, all that's there, appears to be where we may be headed again post this election, depending upon how it goes. And I think that, for a lot of people, they take a poll and they talk about democracy being on the ballot, and people's top concern is the preservation of democracy, that's precisely what they're talking about, are those very elements that make us a democratic nation. The right to choose what you're going to do with your body, the right to choose, the right to vote, and to be, unfettered in your ability to vote. All of that really is the bedrock, the foundation of our democracy. And that's what's being challenged. And, again, I always say hats off to people around around our country that are jumping over the barriers that many of the legislatures have put up to try to stop them from voting, to make it more difficult for them to vote, and to come out in record numbers and do it. All of that, I think, certainly is what is meant when Americans said, you're not going to stop our democracy. We're going to preserve our democracy. And that's what I think you see happening in Georgia. That's what you see happening in Virginia. And that's what I believe you're going to see happening in all the other, many of the other states around our country.
Well, I think we need to be very specific, though. I think you're not going to stop the evolution of the democracy, because we haven't had one yet.
Right.
Everybody's not had unfettered access to the vote. We still do not have a federally protected right to vote. I think of Reverend Frank Watkins, who we just memorialized this weekend. He would constantly remind us, and he was the communications director emeritus of Operation Breadbasket, Operation Push, the Rainbow, one of the architects of Reverend Jackson's presidential campaigns, the co-author of the book A More Perfect Union with Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., absolutely brilliant. And he said, and he was my father's longest serving staff member. And he said, remember, we do not have the federally protected right to vote. It's a state's right. That's a problem. So, protecting the democracy. Oh, so now y'all are real late to the party. Because that's what the 60s revolution has been about. It's been about making America in reality what, as Dr. King said, it is on paper. So I just want us to be honest, because I'm not buying into the language of, this current groupthink that they have. Oh, it's, we're fighting back fascism. We've been fighting back fascism. I don't know about them for 400 years, Daryl. We've been fighting to make America a democracy for 400 years, Daryl. And I think we did, because if we don't acknowledge that, then you don't acknowledge Denmark Vesey. You don't acknowledge Sojourner Truth. You don't acknowledge Phyllis Wheatley, who no one believed wrote her poetry. She had to take a literacy test. What? I'm just saying. I just want us to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth here. We've been dealing with some brown shirts in our community, and they wore white robes and hoods.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't act like that this is new to the world experience, because it's not. This is the kind of terror that Black people have lived under. They killed Medgar Evers in front of his wife and babies. And this man walked around Jackson, Mississippi for decades, and everyone knew Byron Della Beckwith killed this man in front of his wife and babies, and there was nothing they could do. Huh? You got 2 minutes. Well, you have 1 minute.
And we got to remember also that one of the key tenets to fascism and that type of stuff is to try to stop people from learning their history and learning their knowledge. And one of the things that we see happening at many of the states where we did our Arc of Voter Justice tour is that those were states that were trying to ban books that were teaching African American history, teaching you about where you've come from and what the experience has been and what's going forward. The whole critical race theory folds right into the argument that we're now presenting with regards to where our country is and the decisions that we're making. So, both of those really do dovetail into voting rights because many of the boards of education members are voted into office. That's why you saw so many conservatives that were jumping in Board of Education elections to determine what history would not be taught in those schools. So, that's a large part of what's going on now as well. That's why it's so incredibly important, Santita, for people to get out and vote so that the community's interest is out there, so that our history will be taught and available for our children and our children's children.
Yeah, because Black history is American history. It's your history. And I hear you. Some people will say, look, my family didn't hold slaves. We immigrated here. Honey, you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. This country was built not by immigrants. It was built by unpaid labor on stolen land. Start there. Start there. That's who built this country. And then we gave immigrants a place to come to so they could build on top of that. It does not take away from immigrants, but you need to understand the real American experience. So we can get this straight. I tell you, if you have a cold, you don't need chemotherapy. And if you have cancer, you don't need cold medicine. If you don't properly diagnose the issue, you'll never be able to treat the disease. Coming up, we got a whole lot to talk about as we talk about these midterms. Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, he'll be coming on with us through this midterm season so he can help us to understand how we can plan our vote and vote our plan. We're going to have Latasha Brown with us, attorney C.K. Hoffler, attorney Aaron Patillo, and attorney Aaron Connolly. Oh, Aaron's about to get married. I'm not going to give her to somebody else. And then, of course, we've got Robert Patillo. Everybody's going to be fun, and I want to hear from you. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Darrell, see that it bothers me because, when I hear them talking about, this is fascism, and they say it with such condescension as if they have not participated in it. I mean, there's a certain television talk show host who's no longer in the Republican Party, and he is, but he was standing with Newt Gingrich, Joe Scarborough. I mean, it's like, wait a minute. Yeah. So now, wait a minute. And Liz Cheney, you voted with President Trump 90+% of the time. What? Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you think I did not see you? Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have the space, Darrell, to change your mind and to evolve. But don't you come up in my face as some person who is fighting for the democracy when your daddy stole the election in 2000. Hello?
Well.
And I'm not trying to make it about her daddy. Okay, that's not what I'm doing. But don't do that. Y'all stole the election because when all the votes were counted, the person who won was Al Gore.
Right.
He won. He won Florida. Therefore, he won the Electoral College vote. But that didn't happen. Because you have a rigged Supreme Court. You have a rigged system that enabled, how crazy is this? You had a former president and a sitting governor, a former CIA director, and these folks were pulling all the strings and no one said anything.
Hi, Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
So I have, in addition to Darrell Jones, we have CK, Robert Patillo, Aaron Connolly, and Latasha Brown all ready to go.
Okay, fantastic. Let's bring them all up, please.
Alrighty, passion now.
I'm just tired. I'm just tired of us with these gaps in our history, Darrell, and everybody. Fascism, like it began today. Are you joking me? Black folks have been killed trying to vote. This ain't new. That's been our whole history. Killed trying to live. trying to walk down the street. If I didn't move off the side, if I didn't move to the other side of the street, you gonna kill me or my husband. Y'all gonna come to my house in the middle of the night. That's what happened to Emmett Till. Are you for real?
Yeah. Yeah.
No. Don't bring me on a TV show. I was just on one. Oh, and today we're battling fascism. I said, with all due respect, we've been battling fascism. Americans have been battling fascism for hundreds of years. As a matter of fact, fascism, apartheid, all of that, Hitler's model was based upon America and what Americans did to black people. There's a wonderful book, Hitler's American Model. And when you had German POWs who were brought to the United States, they were appalled at the treatment of black people. They said, we don't even treat Jews this way. Oh my gosh.
Back in 60 seconds.
Hey, CK, what's going on, girly girl?
Good morning, Santita. How are you?
Okay, it sounds like you're a little far away, CK. Let me hear you, Latasha, let me hear you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, Aaron, let me hear you.
Good morning, Santita.
Robert, I need to hear you.
Good morning.
Okay, great. Yeah, CK, you sound a little far back in the mix.
Is that better?
Oh, that's much better. Yep.
Okay. 30 seconds.
Yeah, I just want people to stop lying and tell the truth. Now, I'm getting a little mature for this. Let me put it that way. How about that? So stand by. Thank you, Latasha, for joining us. What you say, girl? I'm ready right now. I did not know that. So I would have called you, girl. I would have called you.
Stand by.
My other hit is not till 8:30.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. We're gonna keep you until then. How about that? Okay. Stand by, everybody.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today on Wednesday, October 26, 2022, 13 days away from the midterms. Do you have a plan to vote? Well, you need to have a plan so that you can vote your plan. Plan your vote, vote your plan. Please go to vote.org, vote.org. Why should you do that? You need to make sure that you are still registered to vote. And you need to find out where you can go vote. Many precincts have been closed all around the country. I remember in 2018, this is pre-COVID, you had one super site for 660,000 voters in Louisville, Kentucky. We closed more than 100 precincts in Chicago. More than 100,000 voters were impacted in our June primary. Think about that, everybody. Yes, I'm giving you the sound effect. So please, if you go vote early, if there is a problem, if you to drop off your ballot at a drop box and someone with a gun meets you there, call 1-866-OUR-VOTE. If you have any kind of issue inside the poll, outside the polls, this is when you're going to vote, everybody. Do not leave. Call 1-866-OUR-VOTE. 1-866-OUR-VOTE. And let these lawyers walk you through the process so that you can vote and have your vote counted. Everybody, let's get to some of these headlines. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 54 degrees, showers. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 51 degrees. It will be sunny. In the NBA, the Spurs will be meeting the Timberwolves tonight, and the Pacers will be meeting the Bulls. In the NHL, yes, it is that time of year when everybody's playing. It is great, everybody. Chicago 4, the Panthers 2, and the Minnesota Wild 3, and the Canadiens 1. Did you see that 1 million people have voted early in Georgia? A dramatic increase from 2018. People are voting all over the country. Have you voted? What about that Senate race in Pennsylvania? Many people say that, well, at least it's one of the crucial races that could allow Democrats to hold on to the majority or enable the Republican to capture the majority. We don't know, but it was a tough debate last night. Democratic Lieutenant Governor from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, faced off against Republican Dr. Mehmet Oz. They're vying for votes in a Pennsylvania race that many people are saying, well, perhaps that's the best chance of flipping a seat for the Democrats or the Republicans. We just don't know. We don't know. We're going to be talking about that on the Santita Jackson Show very, very shortly. But did you hear Dr. Oz say that, we need local people, not federal people, to decide your reproductive rights. Sherrod Brown warns the Fed chair that rate hikes will put working class livelihoods at risk at last. Some Democrats are beginning to talk about the economy, everybody. The Justice Department is asking a federal judge to force two of former President Trump's White House lawyers to testify about their conversations with the former president, everybody. And those are some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show as Lula Ignacio da Silva is leading in the polls going into the runoff. Will he become the next president of Brazil? Hope so. Yes, I am saying that. Everybody, we're looking at financial freedom. I want to know if you're using your debit card. If you're using your debit card, you really shouldn't. You need to get a credit card. You say, I don't have enough good credit. Well, that's why you need to call Team Hochberg. They can help wean you off of that debit card and move you into a space where you can get a credit card. Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or visit them at 56david.com. If you have poor credit, if you've had a bank want to purchase a home and you don't have enough money, you don't have a plan, call Team Hochberg. If you want to refinance your existing home, if you want to find out about these financial products like FHA loans and reverse mortgages and VA loans, if you've been turned down for these loans, so much has happened. Call Team Hochberg. If you need to bring down that credit card debt, call Team Hochberg. They can help you. Don't call this credit card company by yourself. They will not help you, but they will speak to Team Hochberg, and you can then end up like Tom and Sonia, two kids struggling to pay their mortgage, and guess what? They had $100,000 worth of credit card debt on 17 credit cards. Well, they called Team Hochberg. They had a free consultation, and guess what happened? Team Hochberg returned to them with a plan. And they worked with Team Hochberg, and they were able to bring down their credit card payments by over $2,800. They were able to save their home. That could be you. It's happening for a lot of people. It's happening to a lot of people. Don't be ashamed, everybody. Don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed. If you're living in your car, if this is how you're listening to the show right now, I want you to call Team Hochberg. They will help you to move into financial success and stability. It is not beyond your grasp, everybody. Nothing is too hard if you're trying to do the right thing. 1-855-56-DAVID, 1-855-56-DAVID, or 56david.com. Everybody, let's get right into it. Of course, there's legal Q&A with CK. CK, we're going to roll through this today because we have got Latasha Brown. I didn't realize Latasha Brown was going to be free, the co-founder of Black Voters Matter, CK. Now, of course, CK is the chair of the Rainbow Push Coalition, and she and Attorney Darrell Jones and Attorney Robert Patillo have great radio shows. She, of course, is on WAOK on every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Robert Patillo's on WAOK from 1 to 4 every Sunday, and they pull him in throughout the week, too. And, of course, Attorney Darrell Jones and Attorney Barbara Arnwine are on WOL in Washington, D.C. You can catch them everywhere. They are at 12 noon every Tuesday. So, CK, because Latasha is going to have to leave us, CK, I want you to open up, and we got to pivot to Latasha because she's got, Democracy Now! Was trying to take her from us yesterday. But she said,
I know. Well,
yeah, okay.
let me just say this. Santita, we need to pivot to Latasha right now. We don't need to waste a moment.
Unfortunately,
she has to say because she is the voice that we need to hear. So to magnificent Latasha Brown, one of my clients, what do you have to say about where we are?
One, let me just say, if I'm ever in a fight, and when I am in a fight, I need y'all to know that I always feel a little bit stronger because CK is on the case.
Yes.
Good morning. Good morning. We are, there are a couple of points that I want to raise about what's happening in Georgia and just all across the country right now when we're thinking about the midterms, because I want your listeners, there's 3 points I want to make. The first one is polls do not win elections, people do. And I'm raising that because over the last few weeks, we have bombarded with headlines and stories around how the black voters are not inspired, that the vote is going to be depressed, what we're going to do to actually help turnout, to lift up turnout. I have had numerous, I can't even count the number of reporters that have called me to get my response of before the election started, before voting started in Georgia, around was I feeling anxious about what the polls were saying, and just as I just said, polls don't win elections, people do. I'm raising that because what is happening in Georgia right now, and CK and Robert and all of us who have been on the ground, what is happening in Georgia right now, that Georgia has actually broken every record on midterm elections and turnout. We have the highest turnout in the midterm elections ever. What's really
driving that,
about
Latasha?
Is,
because when I saw 1 million people last week, I saw 750,000. Then before the week was out, 850,000. Now I'm seeing 1 million people.
I think it's a couple of things. I think we've got an intense fight at the top of the ticket from the governor's race to the U.S. Senate race. So that's one element. Secondly, I think that people are resolved. And, oftentimes, and this is the point that I wanted to make about, of the voters that are coming out, 40% to 41% of that vote are actually black voters. Why is that significant? Because we only make 30% of the population. What does that mean? That means black voters in the state of Georgia are overperforming, which means that the polls and the headlines, I don't know where they got that information from, or if they got that information to sensationalize it, that can ultimately depress our vote. But ultimately, what we see is a high turnout, even with black voters at this point, particularly with black voters at this point, but all voters in Georgia. So I think part of it has to do with this hot contested race. I also think some of it, in spite of people saying, well, you see this voting turnout, that means Republicans are trying to use this narrative now that voter suppression, there was no voter suppression. Like, look at the black folks, they coming out to vote, so it could be a voter suppression. What they've always failed to understand is that we respond. You can't go low on us. When you go low on us, we go hard. That what we're seeing is black voters. It is not that the voter suppression doesn't exist in Georgia. Matter of fact, in this month alone, and CK can probably talk more about this as well, but just this month alone in Gwinnett County, one county in the state of Georgia, you had over 60,000 voters that were challenged because on this bill that we have that was passed in 2021, this SB 202 bill, it gave the authority to a regular citizen. Did you know a regular citizen can actually challenge the voting validity of another voter, just indiscriminately? Just say, I don't think that he's a legitimate voter or she's a legitimate voter. And we saw that in one of the counties in Gwinnett County, which made the election board had to actually deal with that. And even with those that were put back, those that actually were cleared, the problem is that it backlogs and create an enormous amount of resources, and human capital has to actually be able to address the voter suppression. So it stretches the resources. It creates barriers. Just because we actually jump over the barrier does not necessarily mean the barrier doesn't exist. Hasn't that been black existence in America? We have never had America that we literally were dealing with barriers. We've never had an America that was just free and said, come on in, and we walk through the door. We have always had to navigate racism. We have always had to find creative ways to be able to go higher and move beyond the barriers that we see, but that does not necessarily mean that it does put an additional burden on us, that it does take resources and time and energy from groups like ours to really be able to try to combat the voter suppression as well as get people out to vote. And so what you're seeing is indicative, not that voter suppression doesn't exist in Georgia, is indicative that there is a strong organization structure that when on the ground that are mobilizing grassroots groups, there is a democracy movement afoot, that when you're looking at what happened in Georgia in 2020 and 2021, it wasn't a fluke. That is the future of Georgia. According to the census, 100% of the population growth in Georgia, which is a rapidly growing state, were communities of color. And so we're here, we're organizing ourselves, and we're actually making a difference because we're showing up because there are groups. Now, that doesn't mean that this race, I want people to understand, that doesn't mean that this race is not going to be a tight race. That doesn't mean that this race is in the bag, because what we're also dealing with is we're dealing with the other component of voter suppression. That we actually, what we've seen is the Republicans have given themselves, they've weaponized the administrative process so that they can actually, if the election results, they've given themselves more power to challenge and even turn over the election results. They've given themselves more power in this process, and all along the way, where people can actually challenge, whether it's 500 voters, 1,000 voters, or 60,000, like we saw in Gwinnett County. And so we're still battling. The battle of voter suppression isn't over. It's just one component, one hurdle we've been able to at least address, right? But we're still looking at other hurdles as we go through. And we're hearing, everything from some of our people went to vote and they couldn't vote because they had a Black Voters Matter shirt on, which is crazy, because there's nothing on our shirt that is pushing a candidate or anything other than we're saying that Black voters matter. That's simple. But what we're seeing is we're also seeing this kind of heightened sense of intimidation. If people are paying attention to what is happening in Arizona right now, you've got men that are standing out. Here it is. They're making it illegal in the state of Georgia to give out water. The criminalized groups that are giving water. But what we're seeing is white men with guns sit at drop boxes in Arizona, openly intimidating voters from coming to be able to vote. And so I think that what we have to really recognize what's happening in this moment, and I'll say this and stop. I think there are three quick things to say in this moment. The first thing I said is the polls don't vote, it's people. Secondly, is that we have to really recognize that the only way that we will be able to overcome this voter suppression is that we've got to respond accordingly. That means we have to come out in record numbers and beat it back. We have to literally be able to be more determined to get out and vote in this election cycle. And the third thing that I want to say that is under the surface, this is not an irregular election that's just about two political candidates or two political parties. White supremacy is on the ballot. We have a party that has aligned itself with white nationalism, white supremacy. We have to stop that at all costs. When we're talking about fascism, yes, folks need to follow Black folks, because Black folks know a little something about fascism and know how harmful and how dangerous and how it marginalizes and seeks to actually depress and oppress communities.
Wait a minute. And we know it did not begin with Trump. I'm like, please stop that. That is so insulting. Hitler's model was based upon what they did to Black people. Apartheid was based on how Black people were treated. Are you serious right now?
Absolutely. But let me say this, though, Santita. While it did not start with him, let me say what he did. What he did is he resurrected it. It became racism, and the way they did it became more sophisticated. And so what he decided to go back to the old roots. He decided to go back to the roots, that he openly would open Pandora's box, and that they would literally lead from a platform that was openly conspiring with white nationalists and literally inviting them in their party. That's a new game, and people need to respond to that, because we don't need to act like this is a regular election, that this is just a normal election about two different candidates. We have to really recognize that under no circumstances can we allow white supremacy to show its ugly head and go unchecked and go unpunished and unaccounted for.
And recognize it when it's softened. That's my only point. Because Willie Horton, that was fascist. Killing Ricky Ray Rector, a Black man who had the IQ of a baby. In the middle of a primary, so you can get some more votes to show that you were tough on crime. When it's soft, when it's hard, recognize this ugliness for what it is and decide which side you're going to be on. CK?
Absolutely. Well, Santita, I would say this. Before Latasha leaves, I just want to ask her. I am a firm believer, Latasha. I hate to even talk about the Herschel Walker, Raphael Warnock race, but we have to talk about it. I'm a firm believer, and I see it every day, that Senator Warnock will pull this off, despite all of the projections and our closest races. What do you say about that election?
I agree totally. I think he will pull it off, but I want folks to know that's why it's really important for us to keep pushing, because what Warnock is fighting up against, what we're fighting up against is not just one candidate. We're fighting up a white establishment. We're fighting up against a governor who has used his position, even when he was Secretary of State, to take off hundreds of thousands of voters off the voting rolls. He's up against a candidate that literally, although we know that this brother is being used and his weakness is being used against him, he's allowing himself to be used. Now, I mean, at the end of the day, he's dangerous. But at the end, but from a party that is willing to do anything without any integrity they're so hungry for power. And so if this was just if this was just an election, just whoever shows up and then we win in that, I wish it was that simple. I don't think it will be that simple. While I do believe that he's going to pull it out, I think we're going to have to fight like hell. I think we're going to have to literally push. I think we're going to have to be at those polling sites. I think we're going to have to be in the media, preventing these messages that seek to try to depress the vote and to tell us otherwise. This is a fight, but this is a community fight. This fight is beyond Raphael Warnock.
CK, you have got
Absolutely.
Robert Patillo with you. You have got Aaron Connolly. You've got Attorney Darrell Jones. And we have got about 4 minutes.
Well, I'd like to shift to Aaron Connolly. I mean, one of the things that's on the ballot here is, in Georgia and actually everywhere, is a woman's right to choose, the overturning of Roe versus Wade, a woman's reproductive rights. Mm-hmm. And Herschel Walker has taken a very, very, very aggressive position in favor of the overturning of Roe versus Wade, in favor of no exceptions to the fact that abortion is illegal in Georgia and there should be no exceptions. In fact, he's taken such a stern position, I think even the Republicans don't recognize how stern his position is. So what are you seeing of that on that issue being on the ballot? What impact, if any, do you see nationwide when as a political strategist when you're looking at that issue?
And if I could insert this carrot here, that's what we saw last night in the Pennsylvania debate, CK and Aaron and Latasha. I mean, you heard Dr. Mehmet Oz say that he wants local officials, not federal officials, involved in this decision. Very dangerous.
Very dangerous. Very dangerous. And thank you for this
hot mess and sexist and all of the things that literally he didn't even put the babies. That's what was interesting is he said it is between a woman, her doctor, and local officials. What about the daddy? What about that? Like the local officials and Trump the father. Like I don't see. It is absolutely.
Well, did you see that doctor who was the daddy of a lot of these children? I mean, these people are crazy. This is so sick and crazy.
And what makes it worse is he's a medical doctor. This is craziness. He's a medical doctor saying this. That is a huge distinction. But anyway, Aaron, what do you say about that?
We have got 2 minutes, Aaron, for you.
Craziness.
Well, it is. It's absolute craziness. And women throughout the country, as we see in voter registration numbers, as we see in surges in early voting in certain states where this really makes a difference on the ballot, right? Whether it's a federal level race that will be making decisions or local important races like Supreme Court or local attorney generals that will be prosecuting some of these more aggressive abortion bans on doctors and women, right? So this is a serious thing. We see it play out in different ways throughout the country, but it's central to women who are voting. And we can't forget that. It can't be the only thing when we're looking at families and what matters to them. Obviously, the home economic situation is important and it needs to be a central part of the argument. And we see the good campaigns talking about that. We see progress being made in Georgia for that reason. We see folks in Pennsylvania really understanding what's at stake and knowing who some of these local officials are who will be making their healthcare decisions is an important distinction between the top candidates for the Senate. So we have a lot at stake. A lot's going to happen in the next couple of weeks as we go into GOTV with these debates.
Now, in Georgia, in Arizona, in Pennsylvania, everywhere, remember everybody, every House seat in Washington is up for re-election. 1/3 of the U.S. Senate is up for re-election. You've got governorships. You have got secretaries of state. You got 1 minute, Latasha. What do you want us to know? But I knew you're going to be back before the midterms. So
I will be back and forth, but I will say this. There's a couple of, we've got 13 days. Is it 13 days now?
13.
Or 12. 13, right? 13 days before the election. I think it's important for everybody that's listening that these House seats that we cannot take this election, that this is just about a difference between two political parties. We are far beyond that. We really, really we're literally on the doorstep of fascism and allowing this party to come into power that has openly aligned itself with nationalists and racists and policies that actually hurt us, including women's rights. And so at this moment, everybody, we need all hands on deck. So if you are listening to my voice or listening to the show today, there are a couple of things you can do. I'll give you 4 things you do. The first thing you should do is make sure that you vote. You check your status. You go on vote.org, check your status, make sure that you got a voting plan. If you you have early voting, go and vote early. Vote now so that the rest of the days you can actually help get some other votes in. The second thing is support the work. You will be amazed at organizations that are on the ground that we're tired, y'all. But I'm more tired of racism and I'm more tired of these people who are abusing our communities than I am of doing this work right now. But because of that, you would be amazed at how much it means to us when you all are sending $5 or $10 or $20. It sends the message that you're standing with us and you care. So find an organization that is doing, whether it's Rainbow Push, whether it's Black Voters Matters, with any of these organizations that are doing work on the ground, Transformational Justice Coalition, send a donation today. You can go out on the website and send a donation. It doesn't matter how big or how small. The third thing that you could do right now is call 5 people. I call it, we're going to win with 5. The magic 5. Call 5 people to check to make sure that they voted or see if they voted and make sure that you literally get them out. And the fourth and the final thing is this is a moment that we actually have to have. We need to be doing, we need to work at polling sites. If you can work at the polling sites on election day, if you can take the time to go monitor, if you can go volunteer, if you could write postcards or do text messaging campaigns. We need all bodies, all hands on deck. Thank you. Thank you, Santita, for even creating this space for us to really be able to talk about this issue. But it's real. It's real. Game is on.
Game is on. Now, where you off your on to so that we can be supportive of you as you are on Democracy Now!
I will be on Democracy Now! In 10 minutes. So I'm on my way and I'll be on the tube in about 10 minutes. And then after that, we're going to be in these streets.
In these streets, Latasha Brown.
We're going to be in these streets. We're in these streets. So people can follow us, Black Voters Matter, and you'll see where we are. We're in 13 states right now. We're all over this place. So we're in these streets. Come and follow us and be a part of the movement.
In these streets.
We won't black down.
I love it. We won't black down.
We won't black down.
And that's for everybody. Red, yellow, black, brown, and white. We're all precious in God's sight. Don't black down. Boom. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. We won't black down. CK, I don't know what we're going to do with her. Aaron, I don't know what we're going to do with her. But
it's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's just great to hear someone just put it like it is, say it like it is, and with the enthusiasm and energy. And I just think it's much. She's absolutely wonderful. So, Santita, when we come back, we should. I think we should start with Daryl with the incredible efforts that Transformative Justice Coalition is doing throughout the country. And also, I do want everybody to touch on Georgia, and then round it out with Robert Patillo, who's right here in the field on Georgia, what's happening and his thoughts, because the campaigning, the ads that we're seeing that are coming out in this final stretch, while during early voting about Raphael Warnock and about Senator Warnock and about Herschel Walker are very, very distressing.
Well, but
when you step back
But also touch upon what
you
happened last night with
out.
Fetterman, because I thought that was very interesting. It was hard to watch because when you see someone struggling with their health, I think we've got to ask and answer certain questions about that, because that race is now hanging in the
Back
balance.
in 45 seconds.
It is hanging in the balance.
He had like a
It is hanging in the
16-point lead this summer, and it has been shrinking. And the more people see him, the more it shrinks. Because people feel Americans are very uncomfortable with people who are not, looking fabulous, who are not standing in perfection, even though no one really is. That's something
who are not responding quickly to questions.
Yeah.
When President Biden responded,
Also, we're about to come back.
Stand by. Stand by. You can speak to that when we get back. But we've got Daryl, we've got Robert, we've got Aaron, and CK. Stand by. Okay. And CK, we've got Paul from Seattle.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Of course, it's legal Q&A with CK, but we're doing a lot more today because we are getting ready for the midterms. We're just, we're expanding this out. And you know what? We're going to have a watch party on election night here in Chicago. The Santita Jackson Show is going to do that. And we're going to do it in concert with some others. But I'm trying to figure out where we're going to do it and how we're going to do it. Because, fully disclosed, my brother's running for Congress for the 1st Congressional District of Illinois. And, of course, we're praying for victory. I am, but that's Santita stepping out of her role as the host of this show, saying that. But that having been said, a lot of people are running. And there are going to be a lot of races that people will want to watch. And we're trying to come together and figure out a place where everybody can go and watch these races, eat some food, and talk all night. How about that? So you'll be hearing from me over the next few days about that, CK. I wish you could be here, but you got to be in Georgia. I don't want it to be a rainy night in Georgia. I don't want to have to take the midnight train to Georgia.
No.
I just want to keep Georgia on my mind. I was trying to think of all these songs, girl.
I know, and I think it's great. Keep us on your mind and keep us in prayer. Keep us in prayer, because this race is going to define how Georgia is positioned in this country for the next decade. This race, the gubernatorial and the Senate race. So it's critical. It's absolutely critical. Santita, a lot of crazy things are happening here in Georgia while we're voting. One thing that's great: record turnout. So beats all the odds. People were saying, well, there's going to be apathy and people won't do this, and especially black voters don't want to do this. Black men, black women, all of this narrative out the window. Record numbers of black men and black women that turned out. So allowing people to define the narrative and to further split black men and black women, that's out the window. So we don't need to keep talking about that, because this election is actually bringing our community together, from my standpoint, and continue to bring our families together. But one thing that is just really puzzling to me when I'm watching these ads, and I was going to ask Robert Patillo to comment on this, is some of the ads that we're seeing relative to the Senate runoff race.
Well, have them describe them first. I mean, because we're here in Chicago, and we're all over the country, and all over the world. We have people tuning in from Brazil and Venezuela, praying for y'all in Brazil, hoping that Lula can come through. Yes, I'm with that.
Well, I will let Robert, because in his infinite, the way that he expressed himself is so great.
Girl, did you hear him scream at the black conservative last week?
I did. I did. I just love Robert.
But you know what? He was right.
Look, Herschel Walker, there's a halo. He's speaking as though he's angelic all of a sudden. And God has spared. Anyway, Robert Patillo, I just think you should take that issue on, since I know you see the same commercials I'm seeing.
Well, yeah, and I think that if we had just told voters in Georgia to get out and vote to stop these ads from running every 3 seconds, we would have 100% voter turnout, because they have now colonized the brain. They've taken over your social media feeds. The billions of dollars they've poured in. A few weeks ago, when Herschel Walker was at his lowest, right after his son released a video, right after the article came out about the abortion that he paid for, we saw Rick Scott and Tom Cotton from the Republican Senate Campaign Commission, our committee, come down and campaign with him for a couple of days. And what they did was basically revamp his campaign from the inside out, get rid of most of the local people, and bring in national party figures in order to run that campaign that they saw running into the ground. Because of that, we've seen a lot better ads from Herschel Walker and a lot more money being spent on those ads. They've taken the issue of the nursing home, the low-income apartment complex that is run by Ebenezer and them evicting people, and turned that into Raphael Warnock as a slumlord. They've taken a domestic argument between Raphael Warnock and his ex-wife from several years ago, where I believe Reverend Warnock was leaving, and he may have ran over his wife's shoe or toe. No damage was done, and they've taken that to say that, well, Raphael Warnock beats women just like Herschel Walker, so there's a moral equivalency there. They've taken the clip of his ex-wife speaking to police, saying that, well, he's a great actor, and they've taken that domestic squabble and they've turned that into, see, there's no difference between Herschel Walker and Reverend Warnock. Might well vote for Herschel Walker. And this has been going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for the last several months. I think this is much of the reason that we've seen these polls tightening, because of the negative nature of those ads. I think I said on your show maybe 2 months ago, Santita, that when Reverend Warnock was up, he should have taken the kill shot to put this race away, and he was still doing the very nice Baptist minister thing. And because of that, they left room, they left air for Herschel Walker to come back up. And the difference is Republicans don't have any scruples when they're running ads, when they're campaigning. They're not running to make any friends. They're running to win. And so they've begun the process and continue this process of demonizing Reverend Warnock. The fact that they would throw dirt on a Baptist minister it tells you exactly where this party is when it comes to Christian conservatism. But we're seeing them being exceedingly effective in tightening the race. That if people think that there's no difference between Herschel Walker throwing a pregnant woman down a flight of stairs or Reverend Warnock running over somebody's foot, well, then it makes it easier for them to say, well, the morality part of it is just a draw. So who do you prefer? Do you prefer pro-life or pro-choice? Do you prefer low taxes or high taxes? Do you prefer social programs, or do you prefer social engineering that the Republicans are having? And they're thinking that will push them across the finish line. We've seen record early voting in the state of Georgia, most of that coming from minority communities. But remember, part of the Jim Crow 3.0 that they're running with their voter suppression is less so about stopping people from voting and more so about picking the people who have the ability to count the votes. It was about the state being able to take over local boards of elections, about the state being able to take over from the Secretary of State the oversight of elections on the local level. So this is why we have to push to win by an overwhelming margin. If it's a 12,000 vote margin, these people will try to steal this election. We have to make sure that we are turning people out in numbers that we have not seen before, because we have to overcome voter suppression. We have to overcome voter apathy. We have to overcome the fact that they have now decided who will count the votes and ensure that there is such a clear and concise victory for me and these candidates to stand on the side of voting rights, stand on the side of civil rights, stand on the side of human rights, that we're able to overcome the billions of ad dollars they're spending trying to turn this race into a race to the bottom, as opposed to lifting up two black men who are running on a series of ideas that will help the community.
CK, I mean, because, when you see that video footage of Pastor Warnock at the time, he and his wife were in a contentious divorce. She was filming it. I mean, hey, I don't know what happens between two people, and God bless them both, because that's painful. But it was like, wait a minute, are you serious? I mean, this was a blip on the graph for him. And he's standing there like, what are you doing? Like, wait a minute. 'Cause I think people need to kind of get the scene, Robert. Like, he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, if I ran over your toe, I didn't mean to do it. We're trying to do a handoff on our children right now. What are you doing? And she's filming this, and I want you all to know who he is. I said, oh, it's just awful. Awful. I hate to see things like that, CK.
No,
I hate that.
It's awful. It's awful. It's ridiculous. I think to me it's going to backfire because the halo. I saw one commercial last night. I thought I was dreaming. I wasn't quite sure.
Nightmare.
But Herschel Walker. Yeah, Herschel Walker. A nightmare. It was a nightmare. He sounded like he was angelic. This is Herschel Walker. I said, now we are going from crazy to insanity. But the bottom line is,
but he's the happy warrior now, CK. That's why I kept telling you, this is, you and I have been talking about this. I said, girl, this is not about his qualifications. This is about how they can cast him, CK. He is cast as someone, he's the happy warrior. And wait a minute, and he's the big black guy. Who's the gentle giant? Oh, I can't wait to hear what.
Right, and so when he was beating these women, maybe the women asked for it. That's the implication. That's the ramification. That's what's awful. But one thing I will say, they're doing similar types of ads with Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp is being painted as the savior of Georgia. Stacey Abrams is the savior of Hollywood. So they have Stacey positioning with all these famous people and building up the notion that she has Hollywood on the brain, she has the presidency on the brain, and that she is power hungry, and Georgia is not really that important to her. And so these are the narratives that they're pushing 24/7 in Georgia. But you know what, Santita? Daryl Jones is traveling throughout the country with Transformative Justice Coalition. He and Barbara Arnwine are doing it. Do you hear me? They are everywhere making a difference, change in the trenches in the communities. And they do spend a lot of time in Georgia. So I really would like to hear from Daryl to see what he thinks about all this, because his perspective is not just from being here in Georgia, but from comparing it to what's happening throughout the country in some of these hotly contested races.
You know, CK, thanks. And you're absolutely right. You know, when we were on the votercade and our Arc of Voter Justice tour, we were in Brunswick, Georgia, as well as Savannah, Georgia. And one of the things that, we felt that was just, just exciting, I think, were the number of people that were coming out. Not necessarily coming out to the Celebration Village, although we have really good numbers there, but the number of people that were coming out to just cheer on. We had two huge John Lewis, Make Good Trouble vote buses that were going through these black and brown communities and voter challenged neighborhoods, along with the Black Voters Matter Fund bus, their biggest, blackest bus in America. So we had all of this going on through the communities in Georgia, and the folks were coming out just incredibly supportive of it. You know, we started in Minneapolis. We had the same reception in Chicago, the same reception when we went through Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, Kenosha, all of these places that we, and Santita, I caught that. All these places, all of these places that we hit.
Santita, subtle now. Santita, subtle, Kenosha. I'm sorry. I digress. I'm sorry.
Kenosha and Chicago sharing a day, but okay. I'm sorry, Daryl.
But all the places that we hit, and let me tell you, some of the biggest places of enthusiasm that we ran into were the HBCUs. And when we went down to Savannah State University, when we went to Edward Waters University in Jacksonville, Florida, just some of those universities, Morgan State University, we see the black community showing up, black, brown community showing up, now showing their excitement. And I'll tell you this, I get excited when I see our communities coming out and getting involved. But I feel even more excited when at the end of this, they have that victory in hand with the numbers that they have coming out. They see the power that they have and what they can achieve, and you drive it on from there forward to be certain that our entire community's interest is served. That's what I like about this, and that's what excites me about what's going on right now in Georgia with the numbers they have coming out, the numbers they have, record numbers they have coming out in Virginia, the record numbers they have that came out in Wisconsin, and we anticipate is going to come out in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. That's what I see.
Well, Santita, I have to tell you,
something has been very impactful. One of these commercials, and I don't want to give you the impression that I sit and watch TV all day long, but I just have the TV in the background, and some of them are so shocking, and some of them are very impactful from my standpoint. One of them that I saw recently that the Senator Warnock campaign put out, I think had a strong impact. There were probably 5 or 6 women the backdrop was Herschel Walker's position on a woman's right to choose what happens to her body. Not putting in the context of abortion, but choose what happens to her body. And the music behind, because these are productions, the music behind was very sort of scary music that you would hear in a thriller and a Halloween type of a movie. And all these women, mostly white, said they did not feel safe with Herschel Walker. And if he became senator, they didn't feel safe. They put into question, and as a trial lawyer, there's something called the reptilian theory. And the reptilian theory in trial work is where you inject the thought of how the jury, if they don't rule in favor of doing something and punishing these offenders, will make the community less safe. I felt the reptilian theory at work. The trial lawyers on the line know what I'm talking about because I do it all the time. And I thought it was particularly impactful because the community that needs to stand up and vote in favor of, I believe, something that is more reflective of women's right to make determinations of their own bodies. Forget about the abortion question. Right to determine stood up in that commercial, and I thought it was particularly effective.
And I know that they are anomalies because 76% of white women voted for Brian Kemp over Stacey, and white women continue to make bad decisions. And I hope that they will turn a corner.
Well, to clarify, this was an ad that came out in the Senate race, so the Herschel Walker Senator Warnock race.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, that's the trend, right? And I want to see them, and that's powerful. But because I think that we are making progress. It's just not fast enough for many of us, but I think we're making progress, and I think there's white women who are moving the needle, and more of them need to do that. But you know what? We have got CK Arizona. And I know you know about more than Arizona, Aaron. We all know that. But you have spent, I haven't spent that much time in Arizona at all. I mean, I don't know the landscape there like you do. I don't know what would it look like to have Carrie Lake as the governor? Because many people say she's like a smooth Trump. Oh, CK, she's so smooth. Oh, I mean.
Well, when I worked in Arizona, Carrie Lake was still a journalist at the local Fox affiliate there and was, let's say, not my favorite studio to visit. But beyond that, her policies are completely grounded in the Trump ideology. She's literally out there vacuuming a red carpet for his arrival. She's spouting off in these crazy election theories that have cost Arizona millions of dollars and continue to embarrass the state. The current governor of Arizona won't campaign with her, yet she has some substantial momentum building in Arizona. And Arizona is a strange state. And there's a large section of independent voters that have steadily been going into the blue category more than red in the last few cycles. And we see that with the election of Kirsten Sinema, who many of us, idealistically hoped that she would be a progressive senator, and she took a hard right turn the minute she got into office. So that was a little disappointing. But we've seen some great improvements statewide and have a real shot at securing some of the statewide offices in Arizona. And those folks are in a pretty tough fight. And as you see on the ground, what's extra concerning and what we were up against in many instances organizing in Arizona is an opposition that is, openly white supremacist, aggressive, usually well-armed, very vocal, and isn't afraid to go toe-to-toe with organizers and police and to do some really harmful, hurtful things to folks. So that is a concern as we go into GOTV, seeing some of the reports out of Phoenix and Maricopa County, where the sheriff's office has been called in to make sure voters feel safe dropping off ballots. I think that's going to be a crucial issue in many of the states where we see voter suppression laws and concerns about election integrity. So I would love for some of the attorneys to talk about what our rights are in that moment and what we need to do to be active citizens and how we can be responsible and safe exercising our right to vote. That's really concerning.
That's a heck of a question. I mean, because what do you do when you're trying to drop off your ballot at the ballot box and someone is literally there with a gun? I mean, CK, Daryl, Robert.
1-866 our vote. 1-866 our vote. Or do like I did in Georgia when in my precinct, where every single Hispanic voter that I observed, and I was in line for a long time, when I got to the front that was voting, they gave a provisional ballot, and there was nobody there who spoke Spanish. And I went up there, and I was helping to translate. I said, Lord have mercy, 5.5 hours in line myself, and now I'm translating. And I said, well, you know what? I think I'm just going to have to call Reverend Jackson about this. I most certainly did. And Santita, I got Reverend Jackson on the line. The whole precinct, no, we don't need to. There were no election protection lawyers at that particular station. And so a lot of times people are in a situation where they don't see any election protection lawyers, because election protection lawyers are there specifically to give people, they're observing, to give people a hand. And the Democrats have their group and the Republicans have their group. It's a nonpartisan effort, of course, but they are there to address any abnormalities, to observe them. But if you don't see any, 1-866 our vote. I think Daryl can really address this and speak to this. And Santita, we probably should have a show just on that. What are your rights? What should you do? Because every state is different. So in Georgia, you hand out water or food, you can go to jail. What should you do? And you may not even know that that's the case in Georgia. So what should you do if you're confronted with that? In other states, you can hand out something, but you might have somebody there who has a gun who's right there greeting you at the polling station. And they're not supposed to be within 100 yards of where people vote, but they are. So I think that should be a whole show. But Daryl, what do you think about that?
No, and CK, you're right on point. When you see it occur, the initial thing you want to do is use your initial weapon, your phone. Take a picture of what you see. And then after you have the picture, you want to go, if there's an election protection person in there, you want to talk to that person. You also want to talk to the election official that's in charge and overseeing the election for that polling place where you are. Do not hesitate to call the 866 our vote, but do not hesitate to contact the local police either, because voter intimidation is illegal. And you want to take all of the steps to be certain that, you've done all that you can do. But most importantly, be certain to protect yourself. And, if that's the drop box that you want to use, you can use it, but be certain to take those precautions. And I tell everybody, initially, to be certain that you plan it all out. Plan where you want to go, when you want to go there. Take a test drive if you need to be certain that you know where the drop box is. And you can see if anyone's around it. Has there been a history of problems at that drop box? All of those are things that you want to do. But the most important thing to do is to document what you're going through and then to report it so that it can be addressed.
CK, we are coming to the close of this, but you know what? We're going to be talking about this, and you're right, all the way through. I'm, having Daryl on at 6:30, if not 7:00, every day. CK, you, Robert, Aaron, we need to be talking about this every single day, you guys. We have 13 days, and many of us need to know what the voting plan should be, CK. We need to know how to construct the plan. And then we plan your vote, vote your plan, because we don't know. And you know what? For all of the talking that we're doing, people are living their lives. And I get it, because Renee, when she calls in, she's on her way into a classroom. So she's trying to get it all in. But CK, so you don't really think about this. Think about it until you get in the line and they tell you, well, we can't find you on the voter registration rolls. Or you see someone with a gun there, Or you're like, okay, let me go drop off my vote. Let me drop off the ballot. And someone's standing there with a gun, and you're like, and people are like buck wild now. You don't know what's going to happen, CK. You really don't know. And you don't know if you can go to an authority figure because you don't know what side they're going to be on. Right?
Right. And that's absolutely true. So I think this is the thing. You got to use all the tools in your arsenal. But Daryl was so right when he says, take a picture. When I sat on this is part of the effort that Barbara Arnwine created with the Election Protection Network when she was at the Lawyers Committee on Civil Rights. It's morphed into really, really a robust national effort. And when I was on the national committee, I think a couple of years ago, we sat all of us remotely because of COVID and sort of a huge war room going through. So when people call in these issues, they're escalated up, and then there are people that go out in the field. So don't think that your call doesn't mean anything. Election protection lawyers throughout the country will go out in the field on point and help to address these issues. But it starts, and people would send pictures, they would record conversations, whether it was in a state that allowed that or not. But the point is, we got the information, we were able to get people out there, triage it, and address the concerns, and they were in the system. You never know. Every single vote counts. That's why I was very much opposed to every Latino person getting a provisional ballot, because I knew those ballots would go somewhere in the trash, and they would be denied their right to vote. That's a classic voter suppression tactic. And by the way, there was someone there who did speak Spanish. They just didn't have that person come forward. And again, the person running the elections at that polling station did not want them to vote. That's the key. So when you go to the elected officials, like the people who are in charge, like Santita just said, you don't know where they start, but you have the power of your phone, the power of your voice, the power of recording it, and the power of passing it on, escalating it up. And I think that's what we should do. But Santita, every single day, 24/7, we need to talk about this because too much is at stake.
And it's happening everywhere. Because they've got mad problems. They have the first place that they've been talking about these armed ballot watchers and poll watchers. That's Arizona. That's not Georgia. Everybody, this is a national problem. At the founding of our nation, it was never the intention for every American to vote. And we're still battling that mentality now. We're still battling those laws now. Slavery's on the ballot in 5 states right now. America is a right-wing nation, Reverend Jackson says. The fight has been to move it into progressivism. The fight has been to move it into inclusion. The fight has been to end slavery, which is still in effect. The fight has been to make America, this I swear, this will be America, while it was never America for me, it's going to be. That's the fight, everybody. It's the fight. And red, yellow, black, brown, and white, it's our fight. It's our fight. It's our country. It's a land we love. Doesn't have to be perfect. It isn't, ain't no place perfect, but it's ours. And we can make it work. We can make America great. Truly great. Stay right here. I'm going to get some closing thoughts from CK, who's of course on Court TV, and Robert Patillo and Aaron Connolly and Daryl Jones, everybody will be with me. We'll be rocking this out until November 8th and November 9th and November 10th. We're going to make this work, everybody. I love you. Thank you, Henry, for a great show. Love you all. Continue to call us tomorrow at 773-763-9278. In the meantime, have a great day. Love you. CK, is there anything else you want anyone to say, something that people want to, CK?
Yeah, well, Santita, yes. What I wanted to is make sure that people understand the connection between all of these issues that we're discussing in terms of voter suppression, voting rights, and the law, because there's a huge connection. Litigation is underway right now to try to fight voter suppression, challenging these voter suppressive laws, but also there's litigation that is countering all of the challenges to voting. So there is a connection between the courts, the legal system, and what's happening at the polls. There's a huge connection because sometimes if the voter suppression is really, really bad, there are lawyers on standby that will have to file
documents, file lawsuits in court to stop something, get an injunction, and that's quick. And that's why it's so important for people to exercise their right to vote, take pictures of things that are out of the ordinary, and make sure that you document as best you can and escalate it up. 1-866-R-VOTE.
All right. I mean, Daryl, is there anything you want us to know? Because some people are going out to vote today. Some people are going to drop off those ballots.
You know, you want to be certain as you're doing, if you're doing the vote by mail and you're voting, dropping in a ballot, you want to be certain you follow all the instructions, because various states have requirements with certain colored inks that need to be signed. They have envelopes security envelopes that must be signed and must be sealed. You can't write any notes or anything like that are on the ballots. So don't say, go Raphael, run whatever. Be certain to follow.
Power to the people. Power to the people.
Power to the people. Right. Power to the people. None of that stuff, because that will disqualify your ballot. So you want to be certain that you strictly follow the rules. If there's a security envelope that's involved, use that security envelope, sign what they tell you to sign, use whatever color ink they tell you to use. Be careful with doing that. And the other piece is, if you're voting by mail, that you're going to mail your ballot in, if your ballot is not in the mail by Friday, do not mail it. Don't take the chance. At that point, you either want to do a drop box or take it to the Board of Elections to deliver it. Or you can, go in person someplace and deliver it, but do not put it in the mail after Friday. If it's not in the mail by Friday, do not put it in the mail on Friday. That certainly would be one of the pieces that we're going to continue pushing on with regards to what people need to be doing right now in terms of this election and this election cycle, Santita.
Okay.
If I could add to what Daryl's saying, don't FedEx your ballot. Don't FedEx your ballot and UPS think you're going to get it there more quickly, because it may or may not get it there more quickly, and it could sit somewhere because that's not the normal course. That's not what the rules and the regulations say. The other thing, too, don't put hearts. There are a number of people that put hearts on the ballot, feeling very good and loving America because they can vote. This is not the time to express that on your ballot. And then finally, when you're mailing it, putting a heart, a kiss, things like that. And then finally, too, the other thing I think that we probably should have to say it. Don't put if you have 5 people in your household that are voting absentee ballot, you have to follow the rules for each person individually and separately. Don't put them all together in a nice envelope and with a cover letter and all that kind of stuff. Do exactly what the instructions tell you to do. Exactly. Compliance with the rules, you have to do that. Because, see, when things are challenged, if you haven't complied, you're not in a good position to allow your vote to go forward. You must comply on the basic things when you're doing absentee ballot.
Okay. Aaron, Robert, let me start with you, Aaron. What do you want us to know? Because this is not just happening in Georgia. This is everywhere, Aaron.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And it's in my county in Illinois, in Lake County. There's been a history of ballot boxes being shut down, locations being closed early, ballots being demanded from staff at times that are inappropriate, people not getting their mail-in ballots on time. And it's one of the reasons why these county clerk races at the local level are so important. We have to make sure first and foremost, our election systems are functional and allow people to vote at the times that the law states that they should be able to, and have a reasonable process in which to be able to expect to vote when they're registered to do so, right? And when we find these municipalities and elected officials who are easily influenced by political winds and not focused on the very important task at hand, those become really, really important when we see fascist uprisings throughout the country, right? So make sure you vote on your entire ballot. I think needs to be the message, that just the names that you see on TV are not the only ones that are making really important choices, and we have to make sure that one thing we saw in some of these swing states was a ballot that was not completed, right? It's not fully filled out. We want to see people participate in the full process, not just the top of the ticket.
Robert Patillo, your thoughts?
Well, I think it's crucial for just think about the fact that we have to have phone calls 5 days a week with 3 or 4 lawyers on just to understand the rules around voting. That's not what's supposed to happen in a functioning democracy. So I do encourage people to, if at all possible, vote early. And as they say in Chicago, vote often. Bring your friends, bring your families, bring people from church, get them out there. We've had record early voting numbers in Georgia. We need to double them, quite frankly. That 1 million votes is not going to win the election. And that if you look at what's going on globally, there's a global trend towards far right-wing fascism. And we overuse the word fascism. I use the word fascism in this case because Giorgia Meloni, the new prime minister of Italy, is an actual fascist. So this is not hyperbolic at this point in time. If you look at what's going on in Hungary, you have Viktor Orban. If you look at Belarus, you have Alexander Lukashenko. You literally have an international wave of far right-wing nationalism, the type that was not seen since the pre-World War I period. And America's falling directly into that. If we're going to turn around that international trend, we have to show that our democracy is strong enough to stand against those international winds, and that happens by us voting. So we're part of a global fight, a global struggle, not just a partisan Warnock versus Walker debate. This is a free world versus a totalitarian world debate that we're a part of, and it's important for us to get out there and vote, and the earlier you can, the better, because it's harder for them to stop you from voting if you got 2 or 3 days to get it done versus you being in line for 15 hours on election day. 1-800-R-VOTE. Make sure you make a plan and then vote that plan.
Amen to that. I mean, CK, and and the thing is, we think because we're on radio and because we're before people all the time, Aaron, that I've said this before. I don't want to bore people. Sometimes, it's just like going to church. You do it all the time because it takes a while for these things to settle in. There's so much that we don't think about until we're in the situation. And voting, has its own pressures because you're around a lot of people. And if you are the only one complaining, it can make you feel like the odd person out, right? I mean, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on.
Santita, there is a lot going on. As you know, because I was talking to you, I was actually doing your show when I was voting a couple of years ago. Yeah. And it wasn't until I got in, first of all, I was, not looking the way I wanted to look. I had on, it was at the height of COVID. So I, didn't expect that my picture would be taken all that because, I had on such an outfit because of COVID. And then when I got inside the precinct and saw a systematic approach when it came to Latino voters, that really, really, really irked me. I really felt at that moment, this was probably replicated everywhere. And again, in my precinct, where my precinct is, you've got Brookhaven, Buckhead. So you've got a group of probably very, very conservative voters, but then you have a large Latino community. It's at the beginning of what people call Immigration Row. Also, it's covered by that precinct. I don't call it Immigration Row, but that is what some people call it.
Sure.
And so a lot of there was just a very clear difference in the treatment. And that was very troublesome, very troublesome. And everybody was on edge because of COVID, because we had to be 6 feet apart. We had to be this, we had to be that, we had to be all this and all that. And it was just very troublesome. People were very upset waiting for 6 hours because the brand new machines were working. And they weren't working because the volunteers were not trained. And it took 6 hours for the engineer to come in. And it was almost as though the engineer just turned on the on switch. And all of a sudden the machines were working. It was the most amazing thing. Now, five minutes down the street, they didn't have that problem at all. Not a problem. So we have to be mindful of all of these things happening and be determined to vote no matter what. Just as I have to explain to my Black sons when they leave the house. We have this conversation often. Their father does too. Their grandfather, everybody in their life has this conversation about understanding the environment within which you're walking. if whether it's police brutality or whether it's voting, understand the environment within which you're voting. You're not voting in a nice kumbaya environment. You're voting in an environment where some people don't want your vote to count, particularly if you have a progressive point of view. And when I was in Florida, it was just that way. I was in Florida. I lived in Florida during the days when the ballot boxes and packages and ballots were found in the middle of the highway. So these things are still happening. That was in the 2000s, early 2000s. And it probably still continues now. So we are not in a place where there is equality in voting, and that's why the fight continues, and that's why there's litigation. So there's a connection. All of this is connected, because if the conduct is sufficiently egregious, there will be legal challenges done right there on the spot. Lawyers in place to file those suits. There are organizations galore that position lawyers to do that. And that's why we saw a lot of litigation surrounding the last presidential election. Now, on behalf of former President Trump, that litigation turned out to be bogus. Well, we knew it probably was going to be bogus, but it turned out to be bogus. But for lawyers being trained at how to detect irregularities and fraud, the outcome with the bogus litigation could have been different. But for people being positioned to defend righteous and justified voting, the outcome can be different. So we have to be on high alert, because we know that the Republican Party and conservatives have spent millions and millions of dollars training people to file these. They're just waiting in the courts. And if it's looking some kind of way, they're going to file these bogus complaints. And so we don't want it to be in Georgia a tight race at the end of the day. We want it to be a landslide victory. And I think it can if the voters continue to come out. And it's the same everywhere and throughout the country.
I mean, while still acknowledging that voter suppression is real. I mean, that's what Stacey Abrams has been saying. She was like, hey, yeah, I know people are voting, because they're now trying to say, well, because people are voting in these massive numbers, voter suppression is not real. It is real. That's why people are out there voting like that.
That's why people are voting. See, that's the thing. Slavery was real. Slavery was real. People were trying to escape the plantation to run away from slavery. And so that didn't mean slavery wasn't real because people were trying to run away from slavery and save their lives, their families' lives. It was as real as today is real. So voter suppression and the one thing that we're noticing because of the fine work of organizations like Black Voters Matter, Transformative Justice Coalition, Rainbow Push Coalition, the People's Agenda, because of those types of organizations, they are mobilizing people to get out and giving them the tools, no matter what the circumstances are, to be able to succeed and cast that vote. So it's not just people wake up and they know how to do it. There are groups that are educating, that are there going in the community, on the field, in the field. Everybody can't maybe do that, but you can do something. Every lawyer, I was talking to lawyers yesterday, every lawyer doesn't have to be out in the field, but there's something they can do. They can make calls. They can coordinate. They can be part of coordination. They can give freely of their time, because from my standpoint of being a lawyer, this is not a partisan issue, is you're trained to fight for justice, to fight for people's rights, no matter which side of the aisle you're on. That's part of your training. The distinction between a lawyer and non-lawyers is a lawyer can really aggressively go in court and litigate. Now, there are pro se litigants, meaning people who go in that are not represented. But when it comes to voting issues, you need to have technicians, people who know how to do it, who know how to fight, who know how to leave no stones unturned, because at issue, what's hanging in the balance is democracy. So we have to fight like this is the last fight of our lives to make sure that we vote during this election and vote down ballot. Look at every single name. You don't know who's on the ballot, find out. You have access to the internet, research. If you don't have access to the internet, like a lot of people don't, ask at your church. Ask some of your church members.
You don't have to convince me, because once these people are elected, whether you voted for them or not, they work for you. Whether you liked it or not, Donald Trump was your president. Boom.
And as we saw with the Justice Smollett case, and it doesn't matter where you fall on that issue, as we saw with that judge, be careful now, the judges that you elect. It's too late when you're in litigation, ladies and gentlemen. It's too late. You have to find out who you're voting in, because if you felt some kind of way
about the type of justice that Jesse Smollett got, just the process, just the things that happened in court, put aside his testimony, just the process, how that judge's judicial temperament, what the judge did, what the judge failed to do. If you felt some kind of way, then you got to be active and aggressive in electing your judges. Vote down ballot. Don't take it for granted. Otherwise, don't complain. You're not part of the process. You're not voting. Then it's on you, because it's free to vote. You might encounter some obstacles, but it's free.
That's right. And it's your obligation as a citizen, quite frankly.
Yep.
You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to. So just everybody. That's why we're going to stay on top of this, because what's happening in Georgia is happening everywhere. I know Aaron has worked in campaigns all over the country, but very few of us, and we're so grateful to have access to Aaron, that she's part of the family here, that she can say, oh, let me tell you who Kirsten's. And you're like, what? Well, let me tell you what. If Carrie Lake becomes the governor, let me tell you what Arizona is going to look like. Remember, Arizona gave us Barry Goldwater and John McCain. A lot comes out of there, okay? So let us be very, very, very clear. Every nook and cranny of this country matters. Bernie Sanders comes from Vermont. Come on, y'all, get involved. Get involved. And everybody, please like and share and pass this show around. Please, 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 please. We appreciate all that you all are doing to support the show, and it means so much. Support CK show at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every Tuesday on WAOK. Support Robert's show, Off the Chain, every Sunday from 1 to 4. You never know who these folks got a lot of theories with Robert. And of course, we got Daryl Jones and Attorney Daryl Jones and Attorney Barbara Ardwine on WOL at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Tuesday on WOL. And every time you see Daryl or Robert or CK, me, anybody on television, send an email and say you want to see more of them. Please do that. Let everybody know you want to see more.
Santita, we didn't talk about Florida Val Demings and Marco Rubio, but that is something that we need to watch.
Let's do that tomorrow.
Let's
do it tomorrow.
Okay, that would be great, because that's oh my goodness.
No, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And she could win. Sherry Beasley could win. John Fetterman could win.
Yep.
I mean, Mandela Barnes has now closed the gap with Ron Johnson. Now he needs to jump ahead of Ron Johnson, but be very clear. These are very winnable races. Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell are not popular in their states, but their people are organized and their people are voting. These are not, they can be Mandela and Sherry Beasley and Val Demings, all these folks, and Charles Booker, they can be your Davids to these Goliaths out here. But most of these Goliaths are small people who stand on top of mountains. They're not even Goliaths. And wait a minute, and David slew Goliath anyway. So even if they are giants, and they're not, they're people with big positions. There's a difference between a great man or great woman and a person in a great position. These are people in great positions. They have yet to prove to me that they are great people. CK. You gotta do a whole lot, in my mind, to be great. Now you can get a great position. Anybody can do that. We see that happen all the time. Are you a great person? Do you stand up for people? Do you speak truth to power, whatever it costs? And it's going to cost you. It will even cost you with the people you're fighting for. Dr. King was hated by the people he was fighting for. I've seen it happen in Reverend's life, but you know what? They keep on fighting anyway because it's the right thing to do. So let's think about that. I'm going to send you some. I'm going to send everybody here some of these articles that I've been bumping into, because there's just a lot. Police promise protection as more reports of ballot box watchers come in. I mean, what? When I saw this picture of this man sitting by this ballot box with a rifle, CK, I said, you have got to be kidding me. That this is where we are.
Yep.
CK, the final word belongs. Well, Robert, you still there? Daryl? Aaron? Aaron's got to get her son to school. Okay, well CK,
Santita,
you've got the final word.
Is vote, 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 vote. And as your father says, keep hope alive, because no matter how dark these days seem, we've seen worse days and there's always hope.
Amen to that. There's always hope. And that's what you must keep hope alive. You must live to fight another day. Do not let anyone break your spirit. Don't let them do it. That's when they win. I don't care how dark it is. Always know that on the other side of the earth, there is light. And there's always light. Hey, even God took a moment to rest. So look, even when it's raining, the sun is on the other side of that. Think about that. Think about it. There's light somewhere, always. The sun never ceases to shine. So you must keep hope alive. I love you, everybody. Love you, CK. CK, I'm going to call you right now. Of course, I'm still on Facebook, but CK's my girl. I'm going to call her. So Latino Voice Matters. Okay, Latino Voice Matters. Hey, we the people are responsible to govern our elected officials. Why don't you reach out to me? Because I'd love for you to be, I want you to be a part of this show. Mindful civic engagement, that's part of it. Okay, you got it. You got it. You got it. And I want you to call in tomorrow, okay? Call in at 773-763-9278. I want you to explain why we need mindful civic engagement. I think you should be part of this conversation, okay? Latino Voice, you going to do that? You're going to call in tomorrow? All right. I'm going to be waiting for you because I want you to explain. I want you to set the table on that and let us know why we need mindful civic engagement. Don't get nervous about it. We're just going to be having a conversation, okay? You said you're going to do it. I love it. And I love you. So thank you. CK, I love you. I'm going to call you right now. But I thank you all for everything, for all that you are, and do, for all that you are not. I'm grateful for it all. I love you, everybody. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. God bless. Everybody like and share the show. Like and share.